Now, as Congress continues to negotiate on a new coronavirus stimulus package, which I believe has to involve a extension of expanded federal unemployment benefits, that is something that now I'm seeing reports where Mitch McConnell is now opening the door to this. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe it's because they keep getting proven wrong by all these studies that say, hey, it turns out the extra $600 is actually pretty helpful. And more importantly, does not discourage people from going back to work. So now, in recent days, a lot of Republicans and White House spokespeople have been using a study by the University of Chicago. So there were economists that did this study, and they found that more than 2/3 of unemployment claimants received more in benefits than they did from actually working. And so Republicans, they jumped on this and they said, well, hey, that's why we need to cut it because you're paying people more to sit home. Well, than you would, if they're working. Now, for example, this is Rob Portman here, right? And he said, according to studies that have been done, including by the University of Chicago, about 68% of the people on unemployment insurance are making more money on unemployment insurance than they were making at work. Okay. And then U.S. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin also citing this University of Chicago study to say that we need to stop paying people more to stay home than they made at work because it is a disincentive. So now the point is that they're trying to make, and not necessarily explicitly, is that, hey, if you're making more in unemployment than you are working, then why would you go back to work? Basically implying that a lot of these people are who lost their jobs through no fault of their own are just lazy and they want to sit around and collect their government benefits, right? Now that's consistent with what we've heard from Republicans before, obviously, but I'm the one that's saying, and I don't hear a lot of people saying this when they try to make this point, even when generally we all agree with it. I want people to stay home. I want people to sit home and collect benefits. You know why? Because it's a fucking pandemic. Because people are getting sick because they have to go out into public and go back to work, and sometimes unsafe conditions. So yeah, I want people to sit home. I want people to get government money, right? And by the way, insurance, unemployment insurance is essentially your own money, right? You pay into that so that when you lose your job, or if you lose your job, something happens to your job, it goes out of business, that you still have money coming in, you have an income, and you can pay the bills, right? So this extra $600, of course, which is in question, is an additional benefit due to coronavirus. And again, it's to make sure that people can pay their bills because generally unemployment does not pay that much. Where they come up with these $600 from is actually Democrats originally wanted just to pay people 100% of their wages, right? 100% of what they get if they were working, right? That turned out to be a little complicated because, areas, of course, vary, pay rates varied, and they said, look, it'd take too much, right? So we'll just go $600 across the board. This is an emergency. Let's do it. Okay. And so Republicans are now saying, well, okay, now that's too much. We really need to cut back. We need to cut back. And so now here's the thing. That Chicago study, not necessarily wrong. The numbers are right? When you're looking at straight pay, unemployment benefits for a lot of workers, okay, a little bit more than what you would normally make for straight pay. Thing is, another study came by and they looked at those numbers. They looked at what Chicago found and they said, no, it's a bit more complicated, right? A little bit more complicated. In fact, the new paper by Groundwork Collaborative's Maroki Sawo and the National Employment Law Project's Michelle Evermore compared unemployment payments with what workers had likely earned in their previous jobs, according to industry-level wage compensation data. Unlike the Chicago study, the new paper includes non-wage benefits in its comparison, which amounted to 28% of employment claimants' total work compensation on average. Sawo and Evermore wrote, our inclusion of non-wage compensation is driven by our concern that measures of wage compensation do not paint a complete picture of all that workers lose out when they are laid off. So, of course, this makes sense, right? They said that many workers lose more than just wages in unemployment. They lose employer contributions to health insurance and paid leave and retirement benefits. In fact, 60% of unemployment claimants worked in industries where average total compensation exceeded what the former employers could receive in unemployment benefits. So you have a majority of workers that have actually lost out when you factor that in. So, yeah, they're making less overall. And so, sure, when you look at only straight compensation, you can say, oh my God, look at all these people getting paid more, right? We should reduce that benefit. No, 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 no. No, they're actually making less because they're not getting benefits. They're not getting health care. In fact, millions of people are losing their employer-sponsored health insurance. Millions of people who need that employer-sponsored health insurance. And so I would, of course, make an argument that maybe we should give Medicare to everybody, regardless of age, employment status, or anything like that, because healthcare is an actual human right. But unfortunately, both Democrats and Republicans don't agree with that. And I'm talking about the politicians. Voters overwhelmingly, especially in the Democratic side, 88% of Democrats want a single-payer system, Medicare for all. 47% of Republicans want Medicare for all. So there's that. And so now, that said, going back to the paper, they said that these individuals are likely receiving less, not more, in unemployment than they were in their former jobs, even after accounting for the $600 per week benefits boost. And ironically, that's why people are like, look, if it were safe, I would love to get back to work. The issue here is it's not safe, for one. And even if it were, a lot of the jobs are actually gone. A lot of jobs have actually closed permanently. Yes, there are temporary jobs as well, or I should say temporary closures for many jobs too. But there's a lot of small businesses that have end up going bankrupt. They're not coming back, and even so, even if they did, demand is down from what it was before. Consumer spending has gone up a little bit, yes, after it bottomed out, probably as a result of these benefits, but will likely decrease if there is no extension because people will not have the money to spend. Again, when you look at spending and how it goes back and circulates back into the economy, 100% of these benefits end up being recirculated back into the economy. It's not like these people on unemployment are hoarding it. And of course, that leads me to the ironic, right, attack from conservatives, right, who are like, well, it's not my fault you couldn't save those unemployment benefits. You're getting $2,400 a month. I mean, you should have been able to save that. No. Most of those benefits, the large majority of those benefits, are actually being spent back into the economy, which helps the economy. When they lose that, guess what? They lose their ability to spend and stimulate the economy, which means, less demand, which means less jobs. And not only that, but when you look at the housing crisis that is really basically here, okay? And that's why, of course, Donald Trump and the Republicans are now, less Republicans and more Donald Trump. He's saying, eviction moratorium. We need to stop evictions. Right? And so you really can't do that. I mean, yes, you can put a moratorium on evictions for now, but those who are starting the process who can't afford to pay their rents now, you think they can afford to pay back rent later? No, we need a rent freeze, and we need a UBI. We need all that stuff, as I've explained before. But anyway, point is, if you stop the benefits, you're going to hurt the economy. So now you guys know how this goes. Okay. Now, it said 60%, right? What about the other 40, right? So that 40% of people, likely a big chunk of people getting overpaid, right? Right? Well, what about that? Well, let's look into it, right? So now jobless pay did surpass wages for the other 40% of workers, but it's partly because those workers had been working either part-time or worked in very low wage sectors. So now that extra $600 did apply to everyone who received a benefit, even if it was a partial one for a part-time job. So these people got more if they had worked, because again, they either worked less hours or got paid much less at their jobs. So now that kind of makes the argument that 40% of American workers probably should get paid more. I'm just saying, right, for their labor. That said, there's no evidence that these people are refusing to go back to work or that these benefits are a disincentive. And that's really the crux of the Republican argument, is that they're disincentivizing people to go back to work. And we should stop paying them so much. No, economists don't even agree with that narrative. Even the authors of the Chicago study, they came back later after this review and said, yeah, no, our methodology did not count that. And if you did include those benefits, then yes, that would reduce the percentage of wages replaced by unemployment compensation. And so they agree with that. So, oops. Look, with Republicans, with conservatives, it's all about muddying the waters. Why? Because they don't want to help people. Now, you might be wondering then, okay, but it had to, like, that $600 benefit, that had to get through Congress somehow, right? Why? Well, my opinion, it's because it had massive corporate welfare behind it, that bill. And it was at a time where the stock market was literally, well, not literally, but on fire, right? It was crashing. And so now the donors have their bailouts. The market has, for the most part, stabilized. Now, and that, they're also asking for corporate immunity. And so if they get that, I mean, that's going to go to their plan, right? So what they want to do is they want to do corporate immunity, right, for coronavirus. They want to reduce benefits and then send the kids back to school so they don't have to pay for childcare. And that is part of the overall goal to get people to go back to work, instead of course, doing the right thing, going hard against the virus while financially supporting the American people as we drive the cases down. And so, again, that overall goal is to pay people less and make them go back to work, but it's not actually going to work because generally the American people and a lot of businesses are really wary about reopening, even though, and again, polls reflect this. The majority of the American people say that it's not yet time we are reopening too quickly. We need to take our time and focus on this virus first before we start reopening.